It's Tuesday, September 22nd, and this is now on HNN.
This really does take your breath away.
The U.S. death toll from the coronavirus hits 200,000.
And we have 4% of the world's population in the United States, and we have 21% of the world's deaths from coronavirus. That's just not acceptable.
A new report has been released that says a Hilo Veterans Home failed to take proactive steps before the COVID-19 outbreak.
The management of this care home knew from across the country the problems that nursing homes and care homes have had.
President Trump says he will name his pick to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Saturday. Deborah Alfarone at the Supreme Court with what's next and what's at stake.
Sure, we'll use whatever procedural tools we can.
These stories, plus another medical cannabis dispensary opens amid the pandemic. That's coming up on This Is Now.
What's up, everyone? It's Jonathan and Ashley here coming to you from the H&N Digital Center. Right off the top, we want to let you know that Mayor Caldwell is planning a 1:30 news conference that's going to discuss a new emergency order that's going to take effect on Thursday as the current stay-at-home order expires. We're going to bring that to you live on all our H&N digital platforms. Again, that's at 1:30 right here on your H&N digital platforms. We're going to get started now with the latest numbers.
Hey everyone, state health officials are reporting 63 new infections today. The county breakdown shows 55 are on Oahu and 8 are on the Big Island. And the Hilo Medical Center is reporting another resident at the Yukio Ukutu State Veterans Home has died from COVID. The death toll at the nursing home is now at 25. Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard spoke with us earlier about what exactly went so wrong at the Hilo facility.
What more should have been done to prevent these deaths, and what more can be done in the future?
Thank you, Grace. It is an absolute travesty that we have lost 24 of our veterans to coronavirus. What has been made very clear in reading the VA reports, as well as the report that came from HIEMA's assessment, is that more could have and should have been done to prevent this loss of life, what to speak of the 70 veterans who've tested positive for COVID and who are now concerned for their lives. Look, the assessment went through a long laundry list of all of the problems that both the VA and HIEMA saw in Avalon's management of our state veterans home. And frankly, what I saw in a lot of the responses from Avalon were a lot of excuses about why they didn't do more earlier on to prevent this incredible outbreak that we're currently seeing continuing through the veterans home.
Now, you mentioned you read a VA report that we have not seen. Can you give us a couple of examples of what was found that was done incorrectly inside that facility?
The report points to things like caregivers not staying isolated in one area, but traveling between one area and another. Caregivers not having the proper type of PPE, even though that PPE was available. Caregivers who were potentially bringing in COVID from community spread from outside the veterans home and into the facility, potentially infecting some of the veterans there. Really, overall, it pointed to a lack of proactive action, even though the management of this care home knew from across the country the problems that nursing homes and care homes have had with this most vulnerable of our community, our kupuna. We're several months into this pandemic now, and there's no excuse, in my view, there is no excuse at this point for one of our care homes to be experiencing the crisis that our veterans are going through and their families right now.
Meanwhile, Mayor Harry Kim is calling for Avalon Healthcare to be removed as the facility manager. The Hawaii Tribune Herald reports that Kim wrote a letter to Governor Ige saying he has no confidence in Avalon. We spoke with one man whose sick mother lives at the home. He believes the facility should be shut down.
That's hurtful. And for them to say that they did everything and yet they got caught not doing what they're supposed to do, it's hard. It's very emotional because she's suffering up there and she doesn't know why. She knows she has the virus and they keep telling her that she's on recovery, that she's doing fine. But yet when you look at her, it seems like she don't believe. She just wants to give up.
As Congresswoman Gabbard mentioned a moment ago, a special response team from the Department of Veterans Affairs reported many issues, including residents wandering the halls without masks. Avalon said it's a challenge to get them to follow the rules, especially those with PTSD or other behavioral issues. Avalon also says it has followed all CDC guidelines.
The U.S. has surpassed 200,000 coronavirus deaths. That accounts for 1/5 of all the fatalities worldwide. Just a short time ago, I spoke to Dr. John LaPook of CBS News, their chief medical correspondent, about this grim milestone and the search for a vaccine.
This really does take your breath away, Jonathan, doesn't it? I mean, we have 4% of the world's population in the United States, and we have 21% of the world's deaths from coronavirus. That's just not acceptable. We need to all start rowing in the same direction. There are steps that we can take. We know what they are, even before a vaccine. We can wear face masks. Yes, everybody wear a face mask. It makes a difference. You see countries like Taiwan, South Korea, and New Zealand, where they did measures like wearing face masks and really do social distancing and washing their hands and trying to stay outdoors rather than indoors. All these steps matter. They're different layers of protection. We need to do that here. We need to all be rowing in the same direction. We are not rowing in the same direction right now as a country.
So here on Oahu, where we're located, we're in our second round of restrictions, and they're about to start easing from what we're hearing from government officials. As those ease up, is there a concern in your eyes of a third spike for the islands? Should we be worried about that going into the fall?
I think everybody really has to still have belt and suspenders and be on alert. Because, even in the United States, they're talking about a second wave or even a third wave. We're really not done with the first wave in the United States. Different areas are going up and down. And we have to understand that in the fall, respiratory viruses bloom. They love the cold weather. They love it when people go indoors. They're on top of each other. They like cold and dry. So we can't take any of this for granted. And at the same time, you have to acknowledge that people are experiencing COVID fatigue. I think we are going to see a vaccine. There are so many different candidates out there, whether it's at the end of this year, beginning of next year. By the time it gets widely rolled out, we're hearing from Dr. Redfield from the CDC that it may be the second quarter or even the third quarter. So people have to have their expectations in the right place. It may be that an emergency use authorization, which is sort of a more urgent, okay authorization, not widespread, could happen in the fall. People are talking about it even possibly happening or an application for it before Election Day. That's where maybe a limited number of people at high risks, say first responders, or doctors, they might get it. But there's a lot of concern that there not be politics involved in this.
Since the pandemic began, HPD officers have written about 55,000 criminal citations, and some officers say they're being pressured to write even more. Arlene Kawano has the exclusive story.
Internal emails show HPD officers tasked with enforcing the order are being monitored constantly over how many tickets they're writing in a shift.
I value the stay-at-home order. I think it's a good idea. But I'm asking the officers to issue warnings rather than citations. It's just getting ridiculous.
Honolulu City Councilman Tommy Waters says he's constantly hearing from constituents angry that they were ticketed.
Charging otherwise law-abiding citizens with a crime. And think about this, Lynn. You get convicted of a misdemeanor. That's a big deal for everyone. Right now, you're a criminal.
There was no warning. They just wrote the ticket.
Connie Ortiz Sarubi and her husband Philip, both in their 60s, were cited at Kuhio Beach. Philip had heart surgery in February and needs to swim for exercise. Connie says she needs to be close by.
The danger is that he can fall, okay, and he might not be able to get up. But he has a lot of medical problems. I can't leave him,
Connie says the officers told them they were lounging after getting out of the water. Connie said they just moved slowly. They were gathering their things and she was checking her phone when the officers approached. Internal HPD communications show high-ranking officers are monitoring the activity of the policemen who are working the COVID enforcement team, an all-overtime voluntary assignment. On September 10th, a lieutenant sent out an email that his captain and major told him they are seeing people coming in with 0, 1, 2, 3 citations for a 6 to 8 hour shift. They stated that this was unacceptable. The lieutenant says he will start calling the officers mid-shift to monitor their progress. He also writes that the people handling the federal grant, the CARES Act money, are not interested in warnings or park checks. So he says that no longer counts on an officer's stat report. So the officers will only show activity if they ticket. A sergeant unhappy with the lieutenant's email wrote back, "The main objectives of these operations are to ensure compliance from the public through enforcement, to ultimately get a handle on the pandemic." He continues, "I think we are going down a complicated path by obsessing about how many citations are being issued during every operation."
Where is this pressure coming from? Because really, it is about education, right? Just let people know what they're permitted to do, what they're not permitted to do.
In a statement, HPD's chief said, "We know that no one likes to get a citation, but it wouldn't be right to ignore violations when the vast majority of people are following the law." Councilman Waters hopes to meet with HPD Chief Susan Ballard to discuss the issue. Each of these citations carry a maximum year in jail, so the defendant has a right to a jury trial. Chief Ballard told police commissioners last week this will create a logjam in the court system. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
There's a new issue I want to talk about with the state's pre-travel testing program that has arisen. Governor Ige says private partners, including CVS, Walgreens, and Kaiser, will not test children under 12 at this point. That is likely to deter families from flying to the state because they would all have to quarantine, even if the parents have a negative test. Ige made the comments during an interview with the Star Advertiser. New today, antibody testing at Queens Medical Center is giving us a better idea of how the virus is spreading in our community. Casey Lunn joins us now with much more.
Hawaii Pacific Health was the first employer in the state of Hawaii to offer antibody testing for their staff. And I want to get right to Dr. Melinda Ashton, Chief Quality Officer, Executive Vice President for HPH. Thank you for being with us this morning. Can you give us an idea and the scope of this study, what you hope to accomplish and learn?
Sure. Back in May, we were interested in offering to our employees in a voluntary way to have them step forward if they wanted to and be tested for antibodies to coronavirus. We had already passed the initial wave in Hawaii, so we were on the downward slope of the infections. And we knew that there were concerns about a couple of things. One was there still a fairly large pocket of spreading around the community that we just weren't identifying? And the other was, were we protecting our employees who are caring for these patients? And so we offered the antibody blood test as a way of understanding those two conditions.
And what did you learn from the rates about what you're doing to protect your employees?
What we found was there was a very low rate of antibodies among our employees. Not unexpected. There was a low rate of infection in the community at the time. But what we also found was when we tested employees, doctors, nurses, and others who'd cared for coronavirus patients, and other employees who worked in offices and never saw a patient, there was no difference in their rate of antibodies. So it was very much the same. And what we learned was our protective equipment approaches were working.
And really quickly before we go, why is antibody testing not necessarily appropriate for the general public in a large scale?
Right. What we care about right now is where is the infection? Who's spreading it to whom? Where are the pockets? And that's the important question. The blood test does not answer that question at all. It really is a rear view mirror that says you had an infection in the past, and that's interesting, but it's not helpful right now.
Dr. Melinda Ashton with us from Hawaii Pacific Health, and I want to thank the other doctors, Dr. Patel and Dr. Kwok, who are with us this morning on Sunrise to answer a lot of those questions regarding antibodies. There's a lot more to get into on this, and you can find out more online at hawaiinewsnow.com. Reporting at Kapiolani Medical Center for Women and Children, I'm Casey Lunn for This Is Now.
Medical cannabis dispensaries have been open throughout the pandemic, deemed essential services. Because of that, some providers say they are thriving. In fact, Noah Botanicals is opening a third location in Aiea. Here's CEO Bill Jarvis.
Our business has been very, very strong and growing. We haven't had to have any layoffs during the pandemic, and 2020 will be our best year ever. So we feel, in a very, very tough situation, feel very good. And I think talking with many of my peers, they too feel very grateful for the business we're in, and our patients have been supporting us, and we've been able to provide them the medicine that they need.
And Noah's actually expanding, right? Tell me about that.
We're putting a new dispensary in central Oahu. It's at 98302 Kamehameha Highway, and we're right across the driveway from Boston's Pizza, and on a broader level, kind of sandwiched in between Aloha Stadium and Pearl Ridge Shopping Center. So it's a real easy location to find. It's convenient for central Oahu. It's even convenient for the North Shore and the west side. This was very much an underserved market for us and for the community in general. They don't have access. They'd have to really come in more into Honolulu, into town here, to have access to a dispensary. And we'll have our full line of flower, vape cartridges, concentrates, capsules, topicals, all kinds of different products.
I know the pandemic really impacted this year's legislative session, but just looking ahead, is there anything that the industry, maybe some priorities you guys are looking to push next year?
Because of how fast we've seen some of our locations ramp up in terms of sales volume, we're going to be, I think, setting an agenda that would add incremental locations, and hopefully, I think that we can show and that there's demand out there, and that when we open a new location, the door starts swinging pretty quickly, and that that tells you that there's probably pretty big underserved segments of the market.
Now to that still developing story. President Trump is pushing forward with his plans to nominate someone to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court. We've got Deborah Alfarone outside the court right now with the latest on the president's search and senators' reactions to his plans. That's including Mazie Hirono.
President Trump tweeted he'll be announcing his pick for a new Supreme Court justice at the White House Saturday.
Some presidents, they never get any. They last a long time. A lot of presidents get none. We've had 3. It's blowing their minds.
CBS News has learned the president met with Amy Coney Barrett at the White House Monday. The 48-year-old federal appeals court judge is a favorite of religious conservatives.
We're looking at 5 incredible jurists, 5 incredible people, women that are extraordinary in every way. Honestly, could be any one of them.
Republicans are lining up behind the president as he pushes to get his eventual nominee confirmed before the November 3rd election.
We've got the votes to confirm Justice Ginsburg's replacement before the election. We're going to move forward in the committee. We're going to report the nomination out of the committee to the floor of the United States Senate so we can vote before the election.
Democrats are expressing outrage, pointing to Republicans holding up President Obama's last nomination because it was in an election year.
If Leader McConnell presses forward, the Republican majority will have stolen 2 Supreme Court seats, 4 years apart, using completely contradictory rationale.
They all should know that in the middle of a pandemic, when we have had over 200,000 Americans die, that the Supreme Court is poised, and especially with the Trump nominee, to strike down the Affordable Care Act. That is what everybody should be concerned about right now.
A new poll in 6 battleground states shows 57% of likely voters say the president should not be able to nominate a replacement if he loses the election. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
Of course, Ashley will have the very latest on everything happening at Capitol Hill coming up today at First at 4 on KHNL. Want to take you outside now. Here's a live video feed coming into the H&N Digital Center. We're looking at Diamond Head there. And real quickly, I just want to give a shout out to our friends at the University of Arizona Journalism School that's joining us right now on Zoom. We're doing a little online class session with them. Hey guys, how's it going?
Bear down, Wildcats.
Oh, that might have got you in trouble, Ash. No, just kidding. Some of us might be ASU fans, All right, let's turn it over to Guy with a check of your weather.
How's it on this Tuesday? We're looking at some pretty nice conditions today. We do have some upstream moisture expected in mainly tonight through tomorrow for the east end of the state. That's leftovers from an old tropical cyclone. And you can see there's not much out there right now. Even though we had a few showers this morning, they didn't amount to very much and they moved through rather quickly because of the nice steady trade winds. Trade winds will be running pretty breezy today from Maui to Kauai at about 15 to 20. Lighter winds, of course, over in Kona. That's why it's going to be especially humid in Kona with some afternoon clouds and some afternoon showers there. The rest of the state, textbook trade wind weather, lots of sunshine, a few minor splashes mainly early in the day, and those trade winds getting stronger today, and they will run pretty swift over the next several days. Now the surf's going to begin picking up by tonight through tomorrow for north and west shores, mainly a north swell, but some of that energy is going to get caught up into the west side, and it's going to be a solid swell. So if you're unfamiliar in large surf, stay away from the country for the next couple of days. Now today the biggest waves will be rolling into the south shore. 3 to 5 might be a little bit of a stretch, but we are expecting a significant south swell coming in between Friday and Saturday. So until then, we've got some pretty nice weather. Again, we're talking about a few more showers tonight through tomorrow, mainly for those windward areas, mainly for Maui and for the Big Island. And those trade winds will hold firm through Friday, and then lighter winds coming in on Saturday. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
OMG, Ashley. Heart symbol, smiley face, hands like this. That's because everyone should be excited about this. Get ready for some new emojis. I have a preview. I can show you even some of them. That's right. Unicode announced it's releasing more than 200 new figures. They include a bandaged heart, a heart surrounded by flames, which they say refer to heartbreak or heartburn. Okay. There are also some new gender-neutral characters that they're adding to the list. You can expect those sometime between January and October of next year on your cell phone. I guess it just depends on your carrier there.
I love them.
Yeah, I love getting new emojis.
Me too. I find it frustrating when I can't express how I'm feeling without the appropriate emoji.
What do you feel like right now?
Heartache.
Smiley cat.
It's Tuesday.
Right? Smiley cat. What you got?
So the NFL is issuing more than $1 million in fines against teams whose coaches did not wear face masks during games. Now the league says Coach Pete Carroll of the Seattle Seahawks, the Denver Broncos Vic Fangio, and the San Francisco 49ers Kyle Shanahan were each fined $100,000 for not wearing face coverings on Sunday. On top of all that, all three teams are being fined $250,000 each for mask violations. Now during Monday night's game between the Raiders and the Saints, both head coaches were not wearing masks, so probably more fines are on the way.
Those are some hefty fines there too.
And remember we told you Hawaii boy Tua Tagovailoa's first signed Miami Dolphins jersey was up for auction? Well, it's sold for $10,400. The NFL says proceeds from the auction will go to youth charities in Hawaii, Florida, and Alabama. That's where Tua went to college. The winning bidder, though, has not been revealed.
So, Ashley, what do you say we get to some more good news?
I know, love some good news. After dominating the Emmys, the final season of Schitt's Creek is about to drop on Netflix. Netflix already streams the first 5 seasons, and the comedy series ended its 6th season earlier this year. Now, the show, which stars creator Daniel Levy and his real-life dad, Eugene Levy, along with Catherine O'Hara and Annie Murphy, grabbed 9 Emmy Awards this weekend. If you haven't seen it, it's about a wealthy family who lost their money and they're forced to live in a small, quirky town. You can catch the final season on Netflix starting October 7th. And I can't wait.
I can't either. I love it. And if you haven't seen it, Ashley did not say a naughty word there.
Yes, shit's with a C, so don't call the FCC, guys.
No,
it's okay. And in an effort to make the most of Halloween this year here at home amid the pandemic, the Aloha Stadium is transforming into the Asylum, the state's first drive-through haunted house. Starting October 9th, it'll be open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Pretty cool.
Good. Yeah, very excited for that. Halloween, here we come. That's going to do it for This Is Now.
Aloha.